So when I went to India the first time in 1990, and I was so excited about seeing the potters in Pune, I was actually writing a book at that time called Smoke-Fired Pottery, which was about Western potters who use smoke firing techniques. I had done research in libraries and looked at African and South American pottery, but I suddenly realised that I could also look at the work of Indian potters. And then a little bit later, when I was back in the UK, an Indian woman contacted me from Mumbai out of the blue, called Indru Bhatia, and she'd seen my work in a book somewhere and she was interested in what I was doing and asked if she could come and visit me in Cambridge in my studio. And she came and we became very good friends, so we made a very good bond together, and she invited me to go back to Mumbai and visit her, and she took me out into the villages and she took me into a potter's community in a small village in Maharashtra, and I was able to see potters making and firing, and it was the most wonderful experience for me. I realised that there might be an opportunity for me to travel all over India and look at different potters. So I persuaded my publisher that I would like to write this book. While I was travelling, this friend, Indru Bhatia, was accompanying me for a lot of it, and she acted as a guide and interpreter and also a very good companion. And she got a video camera and she started taking films in the villages of the potters working. She was an amateur, so she had no knowledge of filmmaking. And she was editing the films at the beginning of 2000, and she became unwell, and then she suddenly died in 2002, very sadly, and her family gave me all the footage, all these videos, and I knew that I had to do something with them. In India, travelling around and going to lots of different villages and lots of different areas, it reinforced some of the knowledge that I'd learned, but it also gave me a sense of another sense of form. So I started to very much fall in love with the quintessential round-bottomed pot form that's used all over India. In my own work, I love this sense of both being vulnerable but also strong. So the strength comes from the fact that it will come back to its sense of gravity, it won't actually fall over, but the vulnerability comes from the fact that it moves and it can rock. The work that I'm doing, it's hand-built and it's fairly low fired, it's burnished, and it's smoke-fired. So the work that I do, although I've looked at work from other cultures and I've looked at Indian pottery, I'm really reinterpreting it, if you like, or I'm taking it into a different place, which is relevant to my own life here and my own society and my own environment. I returned 2 years ago, and I specifically wanted to see what was happening in some of the villages that I'd been to in the late 90s. Some villages, many less potters were working, and sometimes they were now working with cement rather than clay. What I realised when I was doing my research was that I was right on the cusp of a big change happening, and one of the questions that I asked the potters, I always said to them, is your son going to carry on the tradition? And mostly they weren't, even at that time. We can't stop change, and change is a good thing, but I feel that what's important is to record what happens, and to recognise the skill of people, and to keep it for posterity.